Sneakers is an original Xbox game about a gang of mice that was a Toys R Us exclusive in America, so you know that's a good seal of approval. It was initially released in Japan under the title Nesmix, Have a Mice Day, and as we know, a pun on the title is another indicator of quality. Nesmix doesn't seem to translate to anything, so that does make sense. But the English title doesn't either, because there is no stealth or highly customizable shoes found in this game. Perhaps this was a translation error, and the title was meant to be Squeakers to be a nod to our mouse protagonists. Or maybe this is just the developers being meta and poking fun at how this somehow snuck its way onto store shelves. I have to at least give this points for somewhat averting my expectations, as this was not the cutesy generic platformer I was expecting, so props to the Japanese for trying something different. The game opens up with a mouse sitting atop a house, in a scene very similar to the one when you win a cup in Mario Kart 64. Princess Peach probably was so worried about being captured by Bowser again that she failed to notice the mouse infestation, and I just had to be reminded of a better game. The game introduces the four main mice, including playable character Apollo, and after they find out their supply of cheese for a party is missing, they start blaming themselves for eating it. Gawking around like an idiot is a rat, and being the only viable suspect, the gang chase him to start this tepid adventure. Hearing them speak, you'd think with the garbled sounds coming out of their mouths, they were doing a sort of homage to how it was done in Banjo-Kazooie. Alas, this is not the case. The audio is all pitch shifted Japanese, so I guess Microsoft blew all their budget to get this to America instead of hiring English voice actors. Immediately when entering gameplay, you realise what I meant by this being a bit different. On a 20-minute time limit from level to level, you need to walk around environments on predetermined paths to find the rats hidden around. Arrows indicate which paths can be taken, with orange ones being exits, and if you take the wrong path, too bad. You have to see an overly long animation of the group of mice moving from location before you can move again. Sometimes a prompt comes up when nearby a rat, and you need to select them with your reticule to find them. The rats stand around as if they want to be found and disappear in a cloud of stars, like the gaze of the mice warp them out of this reality and into their torture realm. If this prompt doesn't appear, then you can press X to go into the check mode, which essentially turns the game into a third-person shooter where you find rats instead of finding out how many bullets kills an enemy. Even though finding a rat gives you 45 seconds more on the timer, levels can still take a crazy amount of time to complete given how slow the mice move, even with the sprint button held in. The only other way to find rats is to find contextual items that you can use your gang to move to get rats out of hiding or create new paths, and really, that's that side of the gameplay summed up. Break time! This right here is the Japanese advertisement for the game. Honestly, it makes it look like this game is a beat 'em up and makes the main characters seem way cooler than they are, so they succeeded in marketing because they somehow sold the shitty game with that. After a certain amount of rats are found, a section of the map is highlighted, and finding the right area after wandering the room will start a beat 'em up section. Even though there is a command mode to tell your group to attack the rats, it really isn't worthwhile because of how bad your allied mouse AI is. Just using your spin attack is more effective to dispatch the rats, and the combat is so boring, each attack feels as if it has about as much impact as using a mousetrap on the ocean. These sections highlight how inaccurate the size differences between the two species are, but I suppose they did it this way to make mice beating up rats more realistic. After completing the first level, jumping from a high place looking like a suicide attempt, this new mouse, Bonnie, asks you to find Tiki, who went missing in the back alley, to further extend the length of this game because who cares about the cheese at this point? Did I mention that finding Candy, having surviving members of the gang and doing well at fights all help our score at the end of the level? No, because you don't care? Then why should they care about finding this Tiki cunt then? You gain another member by saving a back alley mouse with his head in the sand, who is quickly abandoned by the leader and has the name Maybe because maybe he should have been swallowed at birth. You then go to the park to try and find Tiki, with the gang splitting up so the developers didn't have to code a group of mice following Apollo through the level. After finding that Tiki isn't at the park, the leader of the back alley gang, aptly named Ice, suggests asking the old mouse at the winery, and I have to ask why one of the rat designs is like a Nazi. It's here you find the rats have caught on to the fact that the mice have caught on to the fact that the rats had something to do with the stolen cheese. Huh. They said very sneaky. Is this off the cuff line why they decided to call the English version of the game Sneakers then? After finding the old man, there is no information given as to why he was sought after, and he just joins the group, giving more reason for an extermination squad to come. You fight the Nazi rat in a boss fight, and this is the most satisfying beatdown of a Nazi in a game, rivaled only by Wolfenstein. Turns out these guys ate the cheese but didn't kidnap Tiki and escape your clutches by running up a barrel that you can't suddenly, despite running up vertical surfaces all game up until this point. You follow them to the rat's bridge where the accusation of kidnapping Tiki sends the rat boss into a fit of rage, and you need to do a gauntlet run of fights to cross the bridge. Turns out the boss wants to rule the world, but the cronies were the ones that kidnapped Tiki and try and exchange him for the Mice Island. But the boss didn't want that, so he froths at the mouth in yet another fit of rage and faints. You fight the Nazis again for the final fight because they were the accidental masterminds for this whole plot anyway. You were then reunited, well, technically just find Tiki, who turns out just fell asleep on the rooftop, and this is all laughed off by the gang because they must have forgotten how much of their time was wasted on this fruitless effort. The only English in the game, the end credit song, tries so hard to characterize these mice to try and make up for the rest of the game not doing so. I know that ragging on the plot of a children's game is like shouting at a deaf person to speak properly, but goddamn, is it a pointless, directionless mess, despite the rest of the game being about finding the right direction and getting points. The main reason for going after the rats changes so much that it feels as the plot was written as it went along, and the characters' reasoning for doing things are like a kid with a stick playing with a dead rat because you can poke a lot of holes in them. The gameplay is incredibly easy, with ample amount of time given for each stage, puzzles requiring no more brain cells than one's found in mice, and easily exploitable beat 'em up stages. Really boring is the best way to describe this game. You just feel so unenthused after thinking about it, but I still mustered up the energy to place this on the list. Mind you, this is boring in the bad game sort of sense, where the gameplay isn't passable, but there isn't anything else that interesting or entertaining enough to laugh at. I wish the Japanese would have went all out and had a visual novel style game where the mice just argue with each other about who ate the cheese. At least we might have got some mouse titties.